Welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we talk to the movers, shakers, and leaders that are getting it done right now in the real estate industry and beyond. Your host, Marguerite Crespillo, started this podcast simply dedicated to call people about what's really happening in this crazy roller coaster ride of real estate. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and stay up to date on the newest stuff by adding yourself to the list at www.realestaterealworld.com. Now your host, Marguerite Crespillo.
Hello, everybody. Hope you are all doing well. I am Marguerite Crespillo, and welcome to Real Estate Real World, where we get to talk to all the cool people. And today is no different. Today is one of my favorite people. I probably say that every time, but I really only talk to my favorite people. So there you go. But today we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine and coach. He coached me for a bit. And I'm not the easiest person to coach on the planet, so he probably gets huge kudos for doing that. But let me tell you about my good friend, Randy Byrd. He's a real estate coach extraordinaire, team leader, and entrepreneur. 19 years as a real estate broker licensed in both California and Oregon. 29 years as a general contractor, too. Past Keller Williams team leader, past Keller Williams operating principal, full-time coach for the last 9 years. Speaker, trainer, mentor. He's coached for 4 years with the number one coaching company, Tom Ferry Coaching, before starting his own brand, Byrd House Development, which I love that name, by the way. Now he is a performance coach and a team leader with EXP. His EXP organization has over 900 agents in over 30 states domestically and 4 countries internationally. Randy's passionate about everything he does. It's led to success with his events, speaking, and coaching for business building. And of course, his commitment to helping others is only rivaled by his commitment to his family. His girlfriend, Kirsty, runs a day-to-day ops as director of growth. Together, they have 6 kids and 4, I think it's now 6 grandkids. They just had twin baby grandkids that are adorable. Currently, they reside in the beautiful Central Valley of Albany, Oregon in the summer. And he is on the golf courses probably every day now in Puerto Rico during the winter months. So everybody, please help me welcome Randy Byrd.
What's up, Marguerite?
Hello. I feel like
you?
we need to have some Rocky music or something going.
Hey, I'm down. What a great intro. Pretty amazing. Yes, I just added 2 more grandkids just this Saturday. And we're really excited about that. They couldn't be more perfect in any way. It was anytime we have twins, so twin boys. Anytime you have twins, there's a lot of challenges and complications. We weren't shy of those.
Yeah.
I was there the whole time, minus when they took her to surgery in case they had to do an emergency C-section on the second baby. But they were born beautiful.
Wow.
Maverick was first, and he came out at 6 pounds, 5 ounces. And it's been an amazing journey. I'll tell you what, really
And
special.
the second baby's name is Sawyer.
Correct, Sawyer.
Yeah.
So I remember Tom Sawyer, and Maverick obviously is easy.
Yeah, my newest grandson was born in February, and he's almost 3 months old. I just got to see him a little bit ago. And they're so much fun. There's always that joke that if you knew how awesome grandkids would be, you'd have had them first, right?
Totally, if it was possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're blessed. And we came back from Puerto Rico for the kids and ended up missing shareholders with our real estate company here last week because they came last Saturday right during the middle of it. So we flew home, and blessed to be here, blessed to be healthy and happy, and everybody's good. They're home now, so it's pretty special.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely, I am really enjoying. We're lucky that our son lives near us in our guest house. So we get to see our grandbaby almost every day,
That's so cool.
It's pretty cool. So we now, this was number 9 for us. So we've got 9 grandkids. Yeah.
Well, we had 4 girls. Kirsty's got 2 granddaughters. I have 2 granddaughters with Cody, my oldest. And on my side of the family, we have 19 boys and 1 girl, and she's a boy-girl twin. So I thought for sure we were just going to start making a football team, and everybody was having girls. So this was our first time we have boys. We're really excited about it. And then my youngest is him and his girl are pregnant, and they're having another boy. So we're going to balance out the team here.
Very cool.
Yeah, it is.
This is exciting, and I'm thrilled to have you here. I know you've been
Yeah.
doing a lot of coaching and growth and a number of other things, and we're seeing some changes in the market a bit over the last
Yeah.
6, 9 months. And what are you seeing with your coaching? What are some of the challenges, and what are you doing to help them overcome that?
Yeah, great. This market is one that you cannot fake it in. This is a market that requires discipline. And if you don't discipline yourself, the market's going to discipline you. And it could be quite a bitch slap. So I love this market. It separates the pros from the amateurs, so to speak. With that said, there's going to be a lot of agents that leave this industry that there's going to be pain and there's going to be displeasure. And unfortunately, people are going to have to readjust, maybe back into the workforce or otherwise, not to take anything away from that. But the reality is, if you're a professional realtor, now is the best time to gain market share, gain clients, and do a better job, do what's necessary to be done right now. And I tend to track with agents that are looking for that. They're looking to take advantage of the market. They're doubling down on what needs to be done and they're coachable. And when we get that combination, like you and I, you talked a little bit, we coach for a spell and you're very coachable. And when you're coachable, you typically are in that uncomfortable area of doing things that are outside your spectrum of what in which you understand, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean that somebody's better than you. It means that you're looking at it from a different lens, looking at it from a different perspective, and it's all on emotional. So when I look at something, it's on emotional. Where if I
Right.
even look at my own stuff, now it's emotional again, right? I look at it differently. I need a coach as well. And so I'm a big advocate for coaching. I love coaching. Doesn't matter if I'm making $1 million a month, I'd still coach. It'd be a lot less clients. It'd be very specific
Yeah.
people that I love to be with. And not that I don't love them all, but I don't love them all. I love the journey. I love coaching. You have those clients like yourself. When we coached together, it was like friends catching up, but yet there was a
Yeah.
job to do. And it inspires me to help people reach those new milestones.
It's interesting because what I actually love about coaching and what you said is you can't, my therapist also says you can't
Same
fix
thing.
the brain with the same brain that got you there. And
That's
so
exactly right.
that creates when you think I can figure it out myself. I don't know. Why do I need to bother with a coach? Why do I need to spend a coach? And it's interesting because when you can talk with somebody, especially when it's somebody that you admire and you respect, and you know that you can't BS them, right?
Mhm.
You know, you're going to hear a perspective that you need to hear. And a lot of times I think people hire coaches to tell them what they want to hear,
Yeah.
not necessarily what they really need to hear.
Yeah, that friendship will carry you so far. And when I was coaching with Tom Ferry, and we had a significant number of clients, anywhere from 30 to 50 clients, 80 clients is not uncommon in that model. And when I was looking at that, there's a balance of trying to keep the client happy because they measure your KPI, your key performance indicator. And this is nothing bad about Tom Ferry, it's just the coaching industry. They measure on who's renewing, who's paying, who's happy. So there's always this balance of that. And I never liked it. And
Yeah.
when I got into doing my own coaching, I was like, dude, you can quit today.
Yeah.
There's no skin in the game here. We might have a contractual agreement, but the bottom line is if you're not getting value, leave. If I don't think you're a good fit, then we're going to end that relationship. And it's really liberating when you can get to a posture and a position in your business to where you're really attracting people that you see and have similar interest and likes and styles, if you will. And I don't put myself above that. I still work for them in my mind, right? I'm still working for them in my capacity of being a coach. I have a fiduciary responsibility to that relationship, but it's much different when I don't need it. And when somebody's not telling me, hey, you didn't have enough signups this month or you didn't have enough of this. I've been blessed. I've had a full client load and a wait list almost since I started. It took me about 6 months to get my business up to speed after I left Tom Ferry. Out of integrity, you can't talk to any clients that were in that model. And obviously, that was my circle. So I had to make a new circle. But I'm blessed and I've impacted a lot of lives along the way now. So it's been fun.
So tell me this, what is the when you say somebody is coachable, what does that really mean? It's one thing to have somebody tell you what to do, but What does it look like to have, like, what's the difference between somebody who's coachable and not coachable?
Yeah, I love that analogy. And I take it another step further. There's mentorship and coaching is a good analogy to look at. When you think of mentorship, it's somebody that's done it before you. So they're telling you what to do. Even take the simplest real estate, which is the contract. If I'm mentoring you in doing a contract, I'm like, no, do this, say this, check that box, make sure you look for this. That's a dialogue that is through mentorship, right? But if I'm coaching somebody and we're talking specifically about contracts, I might be able to add value intellectually or experience wise or something to that contract conversation. But I'm more interested in asking the questions that are going to make them great contract writers, contract negotiators. So
Oh, that's a good
mentoring,
analogy.
right? Mentoring, I'm going, no, don't do that. Do this. I recommend this, do this. And in coaching, I'm like, why do you think you should do that? Why is that important? What would happen if you didn't do it? What would happen if you did do it? What's a posture that you can take to be kind, but come from the strength, the most strength that you could have for your client? And so coaching's really helping them understand what their skills and maybe weaknesses are and capitalizing through identification of those. So that's the difference. To me, coachable is somebody that is willing to work in that delicate area of challenge, questioning maybe their belief system of how they did it before and being open minded to trying something different. And so when somebody's not coachable specifically, I already knew that, or I know what I'm doing. And anytime you say, I know what I'm doing, or I don't need help with that, then your mind's closed in that capacity. So I relate non coachable to closed minded, and I relate coachable to open minded, right? I'm very
Yeah.
coachable. I'm very coachable because no matter what, I'm always growing. And I could be absolutely proficient in one thing, and then they could ask me a question that I'm not proficient in. To where if I'm worried about how they're going to look at me, and this happens in our real estate business as well, if we're making stuff up just to make it sound like we know what we're doing with the client, they're going to see through that. And coaches can see through it when the clients are doing it the same.
And it comes down a bit to personality styles and types, right? Because I've had several coaches over the years. And for me, in case you didn't know, I'm a high D personality.
Oh, I know.
And so for maybe our listeners haven't already figured that out, but they probably have. But the reality is that I need somebody who does tell me like it is, right?
Yeah.
I can't have somebody who sugarcoats it and tries to make me feel better or anything. Like, I need someone to call me right out. And how do you really determine that? When do you do personality tests with people ahead of time? How do you know that when you're working with clients, like what style they need or what is actually going to be effective to get through to?
Yeah, absolutely. We go off the disc test. I was a Keller Williams team leader and owned an office for years in that model. And disc test was really big with them. So it just stayed with me. I can do a personality analysis and 2 or 3 questions with coaching clients and really get a feel for what they are, who they are. I knew you were a D within 10 seconds of meeting you. And I'm a D as well. I'm a screaming D. We track automatically together because of that. We want things quick. We want it fast. Where if I'm talking to an analytical or somebody that's more introverted, I could steamroll them and they'll just agree with me because they don't want controversy. They don't want conflict. So I have to understand that from a coaching perspective. I coach a lot better with D's because I could go bullshit, right? I go,
Right.
that's bullshit. And then they're like, oh, nobody talks to me like that. And I'm like, I know, but you like it, right? Because we're
Yeah.
getting to the meat and potatoes of it. And high D's want that. It's give me the facts and I'll make decisions. The challenge for me as a high D is coaching somebody that's not my style.
Yeah.
And a similar mistake people make is they hire similar people to them when actually you need to hire opposite to you. That opposites attract thing in relationships. But like my assistants, I teach an assistant hiring process now called Critical Hire. And we do a webinar every Friday on this that I think is really powerful because we identify the traits of an assistant to a high D personality potentially, or typically in real estate, the people that are building big teams and have big goals are typically driven individuals. And a driven individual is a characteristic of a D. Doesn't mean it is always that way. It's just that it's like a 60% tile of winners, and entrepreneurs are in that D category. They're risk takers. They want to be the one swinging the bat or making the last shot in the game. They want to be the one that is on stage for winning. And so for me, it's a lot easier to coach to that person. But when I started expanding and I hired my assistant, I hired somebody just like me. They talked just like me. They acted just like me. And they're like, oh, this person's perfect. Well, she wasn't. She was exactly like me. She had the same strengths, which felt good. She had the same communication style, felt great, but she had the same weaknesses I do. So all of a sudden, nothing was getting done. There was no organizational skills because I'm an artist, right? I'm a high D artist. I want to visionary things, and then I need an integrator to put into place. So only after a few years of going through assistance in this capacity, where I thought they were literally a 10 out of a 10 the day they were hired, and then within 6 months I had to let them go because of inefficiencies at work, I was blaming them. And I just didn't know any better until my coach said one day, why are you hiring you? You already have you. You need somebody that's not you. And it was that aha. And I was like, oh man, never thought of it that way. Pretty smart guy. Never thought of it that way. I was dumb as a rock in that area. So I think that is the big difference between coachable, not coachable, finding somebody that's willing to be open-minded. And also from a coach's perspective, no disrespect, everybody and their sister's a coach now. It seemed like through COVID and everything else, everybody wants to find a way to work at home. And there's a lot of
Right.
people that have taken on the coaching umbrella of a name badge, which I respect. It's a beautiful industry. But I hear a lot of coaches being mentors rather than coaches. And
I
so they're
agree.
getting to a place to where they're telling them what to do and expressing their patterns of their understanding of belief and of success and so on. And really, that's not always the best served for a coaching client. A good coach is going to listen, what the needs are, evaluate the needs analysis of strengths and weaknesses and that SWOT analysis, strengths. And so when you get into that, when you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, we could start then pairing things to make sure that we're focusing their behavior into the strongest ROI, return on investment of their time.
It's interesting because I remember years ago, I don't remember who said it, but they said God does not put a great salesperson and a great manager in the same body, right? And
Yeah.
I learned this with my good friend Heather, who ran my team for 10 years. And her personality is a direct opposite of mine. And it worked, obviously, for 10 years. It worked for a long time but I know that she would get frustrated with me and I would get frustrated with her because she's a steady as you go. Nothing rattles her, nothing shakes her up. She just keeps moving along, keeps moving. And I'm over here like losing my mind and going sideways in every which direction. And it's just always was interesting because I made a lot of the same mistakes early on in hiring people like me. Like I always say, the average agent gets so busy and then they grab the first person who's breathing, they throw them in a desk, and then they do the seagull approach, right? They fly over, they dump a bunch of crap on their desk, and they fly out. And then they come back 2 weeks later and they wonder why that person didn't get everything done. You're like, you did no training. You did no. I don't think anybody ever goes to work for somebody intentionally not trying to do a good job, right?
No.
I don't think it's ever intentional. It's a lack of training, lack of support, lack of structure. Or they make the other mistake. They hire somebody to create a system for them, which they won't follow. You're not going to follow a system, Randy. And they're not going to follow the system. And then when that person leaves, they take the system with them. And now you're back to square one.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And something I learned early in my real estate career, and now I've adopted it in everything I do, is having backup systems, if you will, a Dropbox for everything you do. Mine's flowcharts. Everything has to be on a flowchart. Doesn't matter what it is, has to be on a flowchart, because if this person falls off the face of the planet in whatever capacity, my business needs to still run. So I have a flowchart to a flowchart to a flowchart. And it drives some of my staff mad because I will say, hey, we had a little hiccup. Where's the flowchart? And so I'm always looking at how we can enhance that flowchart. And it's as simple as doing a podcast. Hey, remind the participant, get everybody on board, start on time. Here's the topic. Here's the way we're going to end it. Here's the way we're going to publish it. Here's the branding. All these things are flowcharts. And when you have a mistake or a correction or anything and you enter it into that flowchart, it just gets better and better.
Yeah.
And really, this is the only way you can systematize. And And now in real estate specifically, it's a very leverageable space. This space is very leverageable, meaning that I have 4 VAs now in different parts of the world, Philippines and India and Pakistan. And so they have different roles and different capacities, but everything's about leverage now. So I want to be able to focus my highest and best use operating, basically, as like a doctor's analogy, right? I want to be operating. I want to have one-to-one conversations with the patient or the family. Beyond that, everything else should be somewhat leverageable until they need me again. And I
Yeah.
look at the real estate space the same way. And if you're a real estate agent and or an entrepreneur in any capacity, a plumber, contractor, a roofer, it doesn't matter. If you have a hot dog stand in front of Home Depot, if you systematize your processes, then you can start creating leverage within your business, and that allows you to scale in an entrepreneur format. And that's the kind of stuff that turns me on. That's the kind of stuff that I love doing, because you could watch the needle move in people's businesses when you start putting that leverage in. And then more importantly, time and financial freedom. That's just the holy
Absolutely.
grail to me. Time, financial freedom. I don't want all the time in the world and no money. I don't want all the money in the world and no time. So when we look at that, the time and financial freedom piece, it's the most critical piece for everything that we do, including the grandbabies we just talked about, and being a good spouse. And I happen to know you and Joe intimately as friends, and that relationship takes work. It takes
Yeah.
work. It's not all easy, and it's like the real estate business. You see the duck on the surface of the water, and they look totally calm, and they're just looking around having a good time. But under the water, man, the feet are going 1,000 miles an hour. That's a lot of the times what business looks like. You want the people to see how calm and perfect it is on the surface, but underneath there's a bunch of moving parts. And for me, I love digging into agents' businesses. I love digging into that needs analysis of how I can move the needle in their business and do it pretty quickly. That's the greatest joy.
I love that you say that, because systems are one of my favorite things too. Maybe it's the D in us. I don't know what it is, but I learned long ago, when I really became submerged in systems, was honestly when I first got into real estate and I was part of By Referral Only. And back then they taught us a lot about how to create consistency in your business by having systems. But when I learned it through a fire hose is when I started doing REO back in 2006 and 7. And I remember when I got the Fannie Mae account with REO, and Kelvin, who now is the REO manager for EXPs, a really good friend of mine.
That's cool.
And he started teaching us systems. And I remember him teaching us naming conventions, right? Like how to, like something so simple that people don't think about. But when you're looking for a tax record, for example, and it's labeled SC17425, some junk, and you spend 45 minutes trying to find the correct tax record, you realize how valuable something as simple as naming conventions are.
Yep.
And thank goodness again to Heather, who ran my REO team all those years. Like we spent every single day tweaking systems, and the virtual assistants are amazing. Both the two that I have on this call today, AJ and Mark. AJ's been with us, I think, 2.5 years now. And it's just fascinating to watch their strengths, right? And what they're able to do, and how truthfully they manage me more than I manage them, right? And making sure that the same things happen the same way. Like salespeople don't really historically love consistency, right? They want to
No.
build a fly by the seat of their pants.
Right.
But if you're going to build any kind of a business or any kind of an organization with more than just you, you've got to put those systems in place. Kind of like the book, The E-Myth, right? I know you've read that book a bunch of times. Game-changing book. To just create that consistency. You don't realize how it impacts you, because my son Philip, he worked on my REO team back in the day, and I was really hard on him. You're probably hard on your kids. I was really hard on him but creating those systems on how to do things the same way. Now it's 20 years later, and he is a commercial inspector. And he says, I'm so grateful for what you taught me in those systems, because I don't know how people function without them.
It's so true. And what I think the greatest value of a system is to get better, to identify things that go astray. And without them, you're just hoping and poking in the dark. But when we have a really detailed, itemized either checklist or flow chart or system, System's a big word. We could layer into systems for CRMs and the way you do listing presentations and all those components. But I always look at it as a flow, right? What has to happen before the next thing? And when we have a break in that system, we're able to pinpoint it exactly and say, here's a spot where we said notify the client, but then we have a big gap here between the next thing. That's why that happened. Let's fortify that little piece. And then that system is implemented and strengthened. The benefit to it is if I leave, somebody else could look at that system and follow the steps. And one of my favorite, it wasn't a test. I didn't do it on purpose. It sounds great in hindsight. But when I was running my office after I left Keller Williams, had an independent brokerage at 25, and I was really on the time and financial freedom piece. I was in a network marketing company, coaching and training, and listening to these entrepreneurs that were making $1 million a month. And I was like, man, I want that. But I want to have this balanced life throughout it. And so I took my real estate office and I told my assistant, I'm leaving for 10 days and going to Hawaii with the family. Don't disturb me. If Rome is burning, I'm going to come back to smoldering ruins, but don't bother me, because I wanted to see
Wow.
what was working and what wasn't. If I was the one holding that together while I was gone, that was a broken system in my mind. So I came back after 10 days. Rome was on fire. Things that I could have easily fixed, I didn't fix. And they spiraled into cancellations and escrows falling out and money being lost and angry. I had just taken over a property management company with 550 doors not too far earlier. I knew all that was going to need my attention, but I wanted to find out what was broken or what was going to break and really stress test it. So we fixed all the things that happened. And then sometime, I think it was months later, maybe 4 or 5, 6 months later, I go, I'm leaving for 30 days. I'm leaving for 30 days. And
Wow.
it wasn't really a test looking back on it. It was just, I wanted to take a full month off. And I said, I'm going to check in with you every Friday. So you have checkpoints along the way. So it's not really just dropping my business and leaving for a month. And I'll tell you what, it was the most amazing thing because we grew while I was gone. The systems worked. The things that we had set up, I was like in the way almost. So it was really valuable for me to identify that I've now created an engine in my real estate business that can run on its own, which is the 7th level model of, what both Keller Williams and EXP teaches is leveraging your business to where you're the CEO instead of everything to everybody. And it was a beautiful thing. And that really set me on my journey to where if I can't lock my door for 30 days and leave and something breaks, then I don't need it in my model, or I need to fix it and put somebody in place of that particular task. And now I've been able to achieve that. I've got that in my business now. And sometimes I am in the way.
I'm super inspired because I turned 60 in November. And I
I would have
told
never guessed. Would have
I
never
told
guessed.
my husband, because he's not going to be able to go, but me and a girlfriend are planning on going to Italy for a couple of weeks. And that's my plan. And now I'm super inspired to say, I'm going to go. And now my virtual assistants are probably having panic attacks behind the scenes.
And they should. It's okay.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to see if I can actually do that, if I can leave for a couple of weeks and see how they do.
I will challenge you to do that and make that happen. Marguerite, you deserve it. You've earned it. And more importantly, the knowledge that's going to come out of it when you get back is going to help you shore it up for the next time. And it gets better and better. Now, we just got back from Puerto Rico. We literally left for 6 months. And I rented an office because my assistant worked out of my home prior to Puerto Rico. And I said, I need a place for her outside of my home. And so we rented an office in town like 2 weeks before we left to Puerto Rico for 7 months. And so we did the best we could to put these systems in place and make sure that everything was handled in my absence. And I still did my daily calls with her. I've done that my whole career. Is I have daily meetings with my assistant every single day. And then she's the head of multiple other assistants, whether they're virtual or in person. And so we have this chain of command. And we were able to go to Puerto Rico. Nothing burnt down. Everything worked out great. As a matter of fact, my business grew, my income grew, all those things that we want to happen so we can enjoy this beautiful life. And
Yeah, that's really what it's about, right? So we like create these jobs for ourselves that we can't escape from. And learning how a big part of my mission is helping agents understand how to really build a business around your life instead of a life around your business,
Yeah.
right?
Amen.
Because so many agents, we have so many orphaned kids out there because the parents are out there working 24/7 and they're not taking care of their kids and doing what, not that they're neglecting them, but
Yeah.
how many times have you seen the kids there grabbing mom and mom's on the phone talking to a client, or they think that everything is an emergency?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the most impactful things that we can hopefully do as an industry is help people understand what really are your priorities, right? And I'll be 30 years in this business in December. So I've
Mhm.
been through all aspects of it, and it's a challenge to be able to take that time off. I can tell you I've taken one vacation, two, let me say two. Joe and I went to Spain for 15 days with no kids and no friends. And my team left me alone. They left us alone. We took off and it actually worked. And you're right. A lot of times they need that motivation to be able to step in and take care of things in your absence. But we're so micromanaging everything all the time that they don't really have the space to do that.
Yeah, and we learn through scrapes and bruises and broken bones. When I first got into the real estate industry, 2003, I've been in 20 years. I hit the ground running and I was like, I'm going to be the number one agent. I'm going to be the number one this. I'm going to be that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to win that. I'm going to have 10 offices. I had these big goals and dreams. And through that process, I didn't have a coach in the first 4 or 5 years of my career and had massive success, but I also had a divorce. And I don't blame the divorce on one thing, but it absolutely contributed to that because I wasn't there. I was preoccupied. So if you're listening to this podcast, God, family, religion, faith, whatever it is, and then business. And it has to be in that order. You have to put your health sometimes ahead of your business. You have to put your family in front of your business. You have to put things in front of your business. And when you've got big goals and dreams, it's easy to lose sight of that. So for me, without question, the number one thing I enjoy in coaching is helping people get a balance in their life with their family. One of the first questions in my coaching assessment, what night's your date night, or what night are you committed to your relationship on?
Yeah.
What communication do you have in your relationship to have an open line of understanding what's going on in business? And they're like, I hired you to be my business coach. I go, they're related. This is a
For sure.
marriage also, right? By the way, if I'm coaching somebody now, we're in relationship. So we have to have kind of a covenant. We have to have an understanding of who's going to take the lead on certain things. And it's not just me, just because they're paying me good money to be their coach. That's the loving relationship. Sometimes telling them the things that they don't want to hear, pointing out the things that they don't want to know. And I'm incredibly honest if you ask me a question. Like if you go, what do you think of this dress? You better be prepared for the answer, because when you ask me like that, I'm going to say, okay, I hope you want my honest opinion. And the people that I love understand that if you ask me that pointed question, as opposed to what shoes do you think goes better with this dress? That's a different question than what do I think of the dress? And
Now you
sometimes
have your fiance,
I do.
Kirsty,
Yeah. You
right?
said
Yes.
girlfriend. She's a fiance. Thank you for that. We got engaged on Valentine's Day and
Congratulations.
she's an amazing woman. And we're moving that relationship very progressively the right direction. I say that it took me 5 years to go from a first date to a ring for engagement. And I'm a closer. 5 years didn't seem like that long to me. But
Joe and I dated for 5 years and we've been together, married 32. So we've been together
amazing.
37 years now, which I tell that whole story in my book, The 100
No,
Things I Love.
yeah,
But
congratulations. And
it's worth it. And if you can get past some of those challenging times and issues that come up by
yeah,
how to communicate together, it's definitely worth it. And you got a good one there. I love her to
it is.
pieces.
I have a good one, and I'm flawed. We're all flawed. And so what's good about me when we say coachable, I'm coachable because I know I'm flawed, Marguerite. I know I'm flawed. And when I say things that hurt her feelings, I'm like learning all the time, right? It's not just my 58 years of existence on the planet where I think I'm pretty smart in certain areas. It's about what's the reaction and what's the way it's received to other people. And so if the intent was to me to say this that upset her, if my intent was to say it no matter what the outcome, that's different than saying something wrong, saying something you meant it a different way or you're in a different mood or whatever. And so what I always love to do is evaluate and come back and say, wow, that didn't get received like I thought. How can I change the delivery? And
Right.
sometimes I could do everything I can to the delivery and it's still not going to be received. It depends on the topic, right? But if I'm in a loving relationship, a loving posture, and wanting to have that person know how much I love them, that's the ultimate goal. So I always
Right.
look at it from a perspective of amazing human being, amazing woman, loves me completely and without any judgment. So why was it taken that way? It could be her stuff, it could be my stuff. And me being a high D, I know it's mostly my stuff. It's because I go in like this when I should be going in like this, right? And so that's what I love about a relationship that you have a lot of love and respect for, because you work through and understand each other's idiosyncrasies and differences and the way they react. Now, Kirsty's different than I am. She's a different personality. And so again, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. We don't always reconcile those two planets to communicate together, but they can't exist without one another,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I love that. I really am enjoying life. It's amazing that I had to get to be 58 years old before I learned some of these things in life. But I wouldn't take it back. I wouldn't unwind the clock for anything because of the journey and because of the travels. And I love it when people say, "Do you have any regrets?" No, I don't have any regrets. I lots of things that you do differently, but we wouldn't be who we are today and where we are today without those things that we look back on as challenges. And if it's worth it, then you'll work through it.
For sure. And I was talking with a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about how to describe somebody as an animal. And I said, "What would you describe me as?" And she goes, "A wise owl." And I said, "A wise
Ooh,
owl?"
ooh,
I go, "I don't know about that." And I said, "Yes and no." I said, "But how you get to be wise is by life experiences. And the
mm,
more life experiences that you have, the wiser you become.
yeah,
And you don't become a wise owl at 19 years old with no life experiences. Some have had experiences, but you become that with years and years of both good and bad experiences, right? We have a tendency to learn more from the bad than the good. But learning those experiences get you to a point where you can be grateful like you are and humble and open to listening to what the world has to offer. And so I'm super honored to have you as
yeah,
my friend and coach, and so thrilled to have you on here today. And
yeah.
I certainly hope that I get to see you and Kirsty soon. Are you guys going to be at Build?
Yes, definitely going to
Oh,
be a
good.
build. Yeah. And
Good.
I'll leave your listeners with this. This was a coaching client. I'm not going to say names, but first name Todd. And we were working through some things about what people perceive of you. And I think this would be a good transition exit point. And many times in business, there's this balance between love and family and money and relationship. And sometimes we're doing it all. And when you're running through the jungle, worried about everybody else, it's just not the same journey. And when you're looking at business, right? When you're going through business, worried about what everybody's doing and what they think, and with social media doing what it's doing now, we talked about the rhinoceros and how the rhinoceros just runs through the jungle and he doesn't really care who's there. Either you're going to move, you're going to get run over, whatever's going on. He's not doing it with any harm or ill intent. It's just he's on a mission to go where he's going to go. And you don't get in the way of a rhino. It's okay to be in business that way. And so when you're going through business and you're looking at, and there's a great book about how to be a rhinoceros basically in business. And
Oh,
this
really?
particular, yeah, this particular client sent me a big pictures in my office of a rhinoceros, and he bought himself one as well. It's always just that constant reminder, because many times we're focused on the end game, but we don't understand how to navigate it on the way without stepping on people and hurting people. At the end of the day, a rhinoceros doesn't care what the birds and the elephants and the lions are doing. He doesn't have a natural predator. He's just running through the jungle, knocking over trees to get to his destination. Sometimes business looks like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes we just have to look at it from a perspective as, okay, I'm just a rhinoceros. I'm going to offend, I'm going to upset, I'm going to knock things over as I go. But you're leading with a heart of the right, a lion's heart or whatever it may be. You're leading with the right intentions and being willing to come back and acknowledge the fact that you are human. You're
Right.
doing it for the right reasons. Like I put my family above all that stuff. and my family comes first. And I'm going to be a rhinoceros in the field when I'm protecting or running with my family. And so for me, it's maybe an odd analogy for some. In this world, we have to make a stand. We have to put our flag in the ground for what we stand for. And to me, that's what represents being a lion or being a rhinoceros, is just, you're not going to worry about what the other sheep and what the other hyenas and what the other even animals are doing. You're just on your own path. And I think that will help people as they're going through this journey of what their real estate life career looks like, and really balancing out from what's the perfect life look like in a time and financial freedom standpoint.
As always, it's incredible to have a conversation with you, and I can't wait to see you guys in a few weeks. So thank
Yeah,
you, thank you, thank you so much for joining
my
me
pleasure.
today.
Thanks for
Always a
having
pleasure
me.
to be with you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Real Estate Real World today. Be sure to follow me on YouTube and all the social channels, and we'll be sure to have Randy's coaching and information available as well, although he's got a wait list. So if you want him, you're going to have to wait around for a while, but he's worth it, I promise.
Marguerite, I love you. I appreciate you and Joe, and thanks for all you do. I know this is making a difference. So thank you for having me on, and thank you for contributing to people's lives.
Absolutely. Love you too. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. Goodbye. Have an awesome day.
Thank you for joining us today on Real Estate Real World, where we talk with masters and leaders in real estate and beyond on how we can raise the bar in our industry. Please subscribe over on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to give us a review. Your reviews encourage us and help others find our podcast. For show notes and hot topics on what's going on right now in our real estate industry, hop on over to www.realestaterealworld.com and add your name to our email. Thanks again for listening. And go out there, be a part of the elite masterclass in raising the bar on the real estate industry.